The night they changed the locks, it was raining like the sky had decided I wasn't worth keeping dry. I stood in the hallway of a tired brick apartment building in Columbus, Ohio, holding a cardboard box that had once carried copy paper at the insurance office where I used to work. Inside it were the leftovers of my life, 2 framed photos, a coffee mug with a chipped handle, and the lease agreement that didn't mean anything anymore. Across the narrow hallway, Mrs. Callahan from 3B leaned against her doorframe with her arms crossed. Her son Tyler stood behind her, smirking like this was better than cable TV. "Told you he wouldn't last," Tyler said loud enough for me to hear. "Guy can't even keep a job." They laughed. Not just a polite chuckle. A real laugh. The kind that hits you in the chest and stays there. My landlord, Rick Dorsey, jingled his keys as he walked away. "Nothing personal, man," he said without looking at me. "Business is business. Rent's due on the 1st. I had missed 2 payments after the company downsized and cut my position. 10 years of loyalty, and I was out in 10 minutes with a handshake and a brochure about career transition resources. Rick didn't care about that. He cared about the numbers. The rain soaked through my jacket as I carried my box to my car. I sat behind the steering wheel for a long time, staring at the building. The windows glowed warm and yellow. Laughter floated down from somewhere above. Life went on without me. I felt small, disposable, like a mistake people were relieved to correct. That night, I slept in the backseat of my car in a Walmart parking lot. I kept hearing Tyler's voice in my head. "Guy can't even keep a job." I replayed Rick's flat tone. "Business is business." Something shifted in me around 3 in the morning. If business was business, then I would learn business. Not to prove them wrong. Not at first. I was too tired to think about revenge. I just didn't want to feel that helpless again. I didn't want anyone holding a key to my life. The next morning, I showered at a truck stop and applied for every job I could find. I landed a night shift at a warehouse loading freight. It wasn't glamorous. It was loud and cold and smelled like oil and sweat. But it paid. During breaks, instead of scrolling through my phone, I read articles about real estate investing. Books about leverage and cash flow. I watched interviews with people like Barbara Corcoran and studied how they talked about distressed properties like they were opportunities waiting to be understood. On weekends, I took free online courses from Coursera. I learned about property valuation, rental markets, foreclosure laws in Ohio. I memorized terms I had never heard before: cap rate, equity, refinancing. I stopped telling people my plans. When coworkers invited me out for drinks, I said I was tired. I was, but not the way they thought. I was building something in silence. 6 months later, I rented a small studio on the edge of town. It was cheap and ugly, but it was mine. I put every extra dollar into savings. I tracked my expenses like a machine. No streaming services, no takeout, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary. A year passed, then another. I picked up a second job doing bookkeeping for a small property management company. The owner, Mr. Alvarez, was in his late 60s and tired of chasing late rent. I worked cheap at first, just to learn. He noticed that I caught mistakes others missed. He started letting me sit in on meetings. I listened more than I spoke. One afternoon, while organizing old files, I saw a familiar address. That brick building in Columbus. Rick Dorsey's building. It wasn't owned outright. It was heavily leveraged. A variable rate loan. Tight margins. A few units sitting vacant. I didn't feel anger when I saw it. I felt clarity. Business is business. Over the next 6 months, I watched quietly. Interest rates climbed. I knew what that meant for someone stretched thin. I saved aggressively and partnered with Mr. Alvarez on a small duplex first. We renovated it, raised the value legally and ethically, refinanced, and reinvested. I learned patience. Real patience. The kind that doesn't rush just because your ego wants a quick win. By the time the 3rd year since my eviction approached, Rick's building was in trouble. Deferred maintenance. Complaints filed with the city. Tenants frustrated with rising rents and slow repairs. I drove past it one evening. The brick looked duller. Paint peeled near the entrance. But the structure was still solid. I remembered standing in that hallway, holding my box, hearing them laugh. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted control. When the foreclosure notice was filed, it didn't make headlines. It was just paperwork, another property slipping through fingers that had squeezed too tight. I ran the numbers 3 times. I talked with Mr. Alvarez. I met with a bank officer who now returned my calls. 2 years after I slept in my car, I signed a contract to purchase the building. My hands didn't shake. The day the deal closed, I stood outside the same front door. I held a different set of keys this time. Heavier, colder, earned. I didn't tell anyone yet. Not the tenants. Not Rick. Not even Mrs. Callahan. I walked into the lobby and breathed in the dust and old carpet smell. This time, I wasn't the man with a cardboard box. I schedule a mandatory tenant meeting in the lobby, introduce myself as the new owner, and watch confusion spread across familiar faces. Rick shows up unexpectedly, red-faced and defensive, claiming I tricked him, but I calmly explain the foreclosure process he signed himself into. I announce a full renovation plan, new plumbing, safer wiring, fresh paint, and explain that rent will be adjusted to market rate after improvements. Mrs. Callahan pulls me aside, suddenly polite, asking if long-term tenants will receive special consideration, and I remind her gently how business is business. Tyler, now struggling with his own unstable job, asks about flexible payment options, and I offer structured plans, with late fees enforced, no exceptions. I hire local contractors, improve security, fix what Rick ignored, and document everything, building the property's value the right way. Word spreads that the building is under new management, and vacant units fill quickly at higher, legal rates. Rick tries to start a rumor that I'm greedy, but city inspection reports publicly show the upgrades and compliance improvements. On the anniversary of my eviction, I post a notice of finalized rent increases, fair, justified, and unavoidable, transforming the building into a profitable asset. The next time I hear laughter in the hallway, it isn't at me, it's from satisfied tenants in a building I own, while Rick drives past slowly and I lock the door behind me knowing no one will ever change my locks again.